As the Father loves me, so I also love you. Some philosophers and deep thinkers are convinced that the human person is naturally religious, that when we reflect on our lives, we may well discover that there is a higher order of things, and that our becoming well depends on our aligning ourselves with that higher order. Another way of saying this is that we are spiritual beings having a human experience rather than human beings having a spiritual experience. If we were to share our stories with ourselves or with others, we would share those events which have had a major impact in our lives. Often memorable events are the times when we have been shocked and humiliated, or when our shortcomings and mistakes have pretty much been branded into our minds. I recall a class I was in where each of the students was to share a brief background of their lives. After the class, several months later, one of the students shared with me that the vast majority of the class were the walking wounded, often sharing how they were mistreated, neglected, or betrayed in their lives. Stories like these appear as the raw, unvarnished truth without any spin. The question for us, I believe, is, can we tell our stories the way the scriptures this weekend speak to us? In the Acts of the Apostles, Peter says, "In truth, I see that God shows no partiality. Rather, in every nation, whoever fears him and acts uprightly is acceptable to him." In the first letter of John, we hear, "Let us love one another because love is of God. Whoever is without love does not know God, for God is love." In today's gospel, Jesus says, "As the Father loves me, so I love you. Remain in my love." So the question is, how can we experience this love? As I was pulling together some reflections of spiritual writers, it seems that in order to give people the experience of being themselves grace and treasure is to treat them as treasure and is to be gracious to them. We can look at last Sunday's gospel about Jesus being the vine and we being the branches to get an idea of how to begin this process. As followers of Christ, each one of us is connected to Christ the vine, because apart from him we can do nothing. Also, if we are to be fruitful branches, we must be pruned. So using these images, we may very well come to the realization that there needs to be action on our part, and that action will involve some pain and suffering. So, we're called to treat others as treasure and to be gracious to them, even if the sun rises on the evil and the good and the rains fall on the just and the unjust. This lesson will likely be lost on me unless the warmth of another human being envelops me, unless some other human person refreshes the weariness I feel when I'm overwhelmed by the struggles of life. Simply put, I won't feel my own life, my own self, as grace or as gift of God unless someone values me. If we were to look at the scriptures today with a sense of logic, we may very well conclude, we first feel all life and existence as gift or grace. Then we feel the grace of God, the grace of Jesus, and finally, we then be gracious to others. The readings today and from last week seem to make that point. But the other way, to first feel the grace of some human presence, feeling forgiven or accepted or served, then beginning to feel all life and our own existence as grace, and then feeling inspired to be gracious to others, that way is not logical. However, it is the way human relationships operate. While some special folks, perhaps even Jesus, experienced grace the logical way, just by being alive, the vast majority of us fall into the second category. We're called to enter this love flow, this love relationship Jesus presents to us. One way to do this is to choose a person who has loved you, valued you, and treated you like a treasure, and see in that person a revelation of the universal love of God. Now, don't treat all people and all events equally, because some people are sacramental carriers of divine love. The more we practice this in our reflective prayer, the more we may very well recall times when we entered the love flow with different people. And perhaps there even may be times when we experience life as grace, as coming from God, and urging us to share that grace with others. It all comes down to entering the love flow.